Ross. We're going live.
I feel bad for the stuff I was saying about Bob Ross last week, or like the Twitch menu. But you know what? I reserve the right to be curmudgeon-y
No, it's
sometimes.
fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think it's good. We have to look. If we don't have opposite opinions, what's the point of having a conversation? That's the exchange of ideas. All right.
What? Did I get a text? Oh, you sent the text.
I sent the tweet. Yeah.
Or tweet. You know, it's one of those T words.
All right. So, I am going to play the music to get us pumped. Sound good?
Sweet. Let's do it.
All right. Here we go. All right, so that's the intro song. Are we ready to get going?
Yes, give me the tick tick ticks, buddy.
All right.
Hello and welcome to the Exclamation Mark Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Crofton Steers. I am here with my co-host, the Beavis to my butthead, if you will. That is Beau Schwartz. No. Welcome, Beau.
I know those are two characters, but that I don't want to be anybody's anything to anyone's butt head.
Trust me, even though I'm butthead, he's the smart one. Beavis is the one that always needs a teepee for his bunghole.
You know, I never really watched a full episode of that, and I know that. What's that guy's name? Judge, the judge.
I am Mike Judge.
Mike Judge. I love Idiocracy. You know, I hear that new Silicon Valley show is pretty good, but. He did Beavis and Butthead. That's where you kind of first heard of them. Yeah,
King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead. But Beavis and Butthead first. It's very subtle in the fact that it's like these dumb guys, but like there's a lot of social commentary. I really like the movie that Beavis and Butthead Do America. They're getting a tour of the Hoover Dam, and Beavis, is it Beavis or Butthead who asks the tour guide? Says. Is this a goddamn?
Good.
And I found that so hilarious as a kid. Oh man,
it sounds horrible. It's
amazing. Anyway, this is big. This is big week in the world of video games.
Sure.
There's a lot of big releases. Plus, BlizzCon happened, so we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I will make a disclaimer off the top here that I am sick as a dog. And I'm going to therefore sound kind of crummy. But luckily I have the high energy of my Beavis, Beau.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm ready to go, man. We got BlizzCon was this weekend, and I am excited to just go blah, 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 and talk all about it. So thanks for joining us and listening in on this conversation. Because if you missed any details, I'm going to try and give you a big picture of everything that happened this weekend. Can't wait. I'm sorry you're sick.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to say is that this week marks the release of a couple of major games. One of the which is Rise of the Tomb Raider, and ex-colleague, and friend of mine worked on that game. So Phil, if you end up listening to this, well, first off, you're probably too busy and or enjoying some well-deserved rest. But congratulations on putting that out the door. I'm glad it's getting good reviews. And it reminds me, like knowing somebody who works on one of these games reminds me how much time and effort it takes to put together these monstrosities. It's not like two people in their garage anymore. This is like a giant team, and they work long hours, and so it's an achievement putting out these games. And I see like all this Facebook posts are like going to these parties and all this, and for the launch. But I know leading up to that, it was probably a lot of long hours. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to the maker Bethesda and the makers of Fallout 4, another big one released this year, and all game developers that are putting out these giant products that we're enjoying.
Yeah, congratulations to your friend. I do not know this person, but yeah, it's a big deal. I think it's a big milestone getting one of these giant, as you say, behemoths out the door for us to just criticize. You know,
What's funny is that he's the lead combat designer for Tomb Raider, and so that would mean there's giant swaths of the game he doesn't even work on, so he's focused on one part of the game, and so it is really funny because like I've seen some reviews that say that the combat is super good, and then others that will be like more critical of certain aspects of the combat. I wonder how personally he takes, like I've never been in a position to have my work critiqued at such a high level. I wonder how personally he takes those things, you know?
I think they, if you work something like if you do something for 40 hours a week, especially in game development, but anything that has an artistic bent or is creating a game, I think you do. It does matter to you. I don't think you're just like, well, I punched in, I punched out, I made this thing. If you like it, great. If you don't, I don't care. I think
Probably
if
more
you
like 80 hours a week.
sure, yeah,
Yeah.
like every day and late nights. So I think I think it does matter. I think if someone does a job like that and the product doesn't matter to them, then they're not probably in the right place, or that's not a very happy thing, I think. So, all right, well, let's get into it, man. We're going to talk about Fallout 4 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Tuck in, if that bus ride is getting real long, we're going to take you all the way to your destination in our discussion about the news this week in readme.txt. Right, Crofton?
Yes, sir.
readme.txt.
So, BlizzCon happened. Wait, you're going to say something?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking because, like, clearly you're going to ejaculate all over the Blizzard stuff very momentarily.
It's a family podcast, folks.
So I just before you started, the way I figure is that I'll present each of these games to you, and you can just absolutely, spew information over the listeners and your feelings. Before we get into each of the games, I just wanted to run a couple of pieces of Blizzard related news by you. One is that I heard that Activision Blizzard Studios is this new entity. It's creating the Skylanders show, and they're talking about doing a Call of Duty cinematic universe, which would involve a lot of, like, I guess, Blizzard has had a real heavy hand on the Warcraft movie that they'd be moving into Call of Duty stuff. What do you think of that?
All right, so initial thoughts. Have you ever seen one of these Call of Duty commercials? Like, they're happening
The ones
now.
with the celebrities?
Yeah,
or?
it's like a celebrity comedian and some, very attractive woman with guns shooting things and eating hamburgers and stuff like that. You've seen these
I've seen one with Robert Downey Jr. a few years ago.
All right. Well, okay. So if they're like the commercials trivialize the savagery and horror of war in such a great degree. Now it's for a video game and it's a commercial. I mean, most commercials they're terrible in a lot of cases handling such things. So you kind of roll your eyes and just go with it. a cinematic universe, they better not make it, like they better not trivialize war. Think about all the great war movies that like Steven Spielberg made, Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List. Like think about war movies and how even ones that big up the violence still have this sense of war is terrible. I am concerned that the video game / movie making of war movies is going to make it look awesome, and I don't think I just don't like the idea of that. So it
the one thing I would say about that though is that like when the first Call of Duties came out, 1 and 2 and all that, it was all about the horrors of war and during World War II. But recently, they have like subgenres of Call of Duties, and the recent release Call of Duty Black Ops 3 is all about like cyberpunk sort of mech stuff, sci-fi. It's got a huge zombie mode. Like it seems like it's much more tongue-in-cheek than it used to be. So like I mean, if the movies were like Black Ops science fiction type movies, maybe you would need to show the.
It depends if we're getting like a Chuck Norris movie or a real war movies. And so I don't know. I mean, they have an audience, so it makes sense for them to produce video content. There are a lot of video games being made into Battleship got made into a movie. Why not Call of Duty? I mean, it seems like
it's true. That's a good
less
point.
of a stretch to make a Call of Duty movie than it is to make about Battleship. So I'm sure they were sitting in the boardroom going like, guys, I think we need to get in on this. Also notably, they're going to do the Skylanders. I think I heard mention about a Skylanders series of some kind. Makes total
probably
sense.
Kids show or something.
Yeah, I mean, people love that. The other thing of note, and we'll get into this a bit later, is that I know Overwatch, the new Blizzard shooter game, also going to have a story. They've said they have plans for storytelling outside of the game in the form of comic books and cinematics and video. They haven't been very detailed about what that's going to be. I could definitely see them wanting to leverage this studio to make Overwatch related things as well, and who knows what else. I mean, that's just what they're telling us.
So the other big bit of Blizzard corporate news, I guess, is that Activision Blizzard has bought King, famed developers or infame developers of Candy Crush Saga, for $6 billion.
Notably, way more than what Disney paid for Star Wars. Like
is it?
I think it was somewhere in the $2 to $4 billion range for Star Wars. And
no way.
Yeah,
really?
I've heard that a lot. I can't cite an official source, but it was more. They paid more for Candy Crush Saga and affiliated properties from King than Disney paid for the rights or whatever it is they got out of Star Wars from George Lucas.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Well,
the future is mobile, friend.
The thing that concerns me about this is Activision, not so much Blizzard, Activision in particular, although they are one company, is sort of taking the mantle of the EA evilness, sort of that gamers have known to hate. Ubisoft has sort of picked a few spots as well, but Activision with its sort of yearly dose of content, bleeding franchises to the ground. Bobby Kotick. Yeah, he's considered one of the big villains of gaming or whatever, I guess. And so I just find you put King, this purchase in there, and it really looks like their corporate direction is not one that. Let me just say, I hope that Blizzard keeps its walls up and manages to stay as separate as possible, because I would really hate to be playing a Candy Crush Saga mini game in my WoW.
Yeah, well, I think this is pervasive along a lot of the big developers, and Activision's looking to be the forefront of it. I mean, Heroes is not a game that you pay $60 for. It's a game you pay for free, and that you could spend 10 times as much if you're one of the whales. Same with Hearthstone. I mean, Hearthstone is free. And then $1,000 later, you're like, oh man, this free-to-play game is so expensive.
But I think it's fair to say that those games are actually games. Like they're of a certain level of quality, right?
Well, they have a pedigree and a reputation.
Whereas Candy Crush is match 3 color game that's essentially reached a point of like, and to be fair, I haven't played Candy Crush. Just from what I hear, it's like the further you go, the more it becomes almost like a trap, Whereas there's nothing forcing you to buy a pack of Hearthstone cards or buy a new hero in Heroes. You can just play with the hero you have, or you can play with whatever. Where you actually get penalized in Candy Crush if you don't put in money at a certain point.
Yeah, that's I haven't played Candy Crush either, so I don't have a good.
You may be soon,
I don't have a good no because I mean I don't really play the Activision games, so it's doesn't
but
it's not consistent with my character. I stick to the Blizzard games, but
I don't know. Like the Activision Blizzard Studios are doing Call of Duty. Like I think the lines are being blurred here, Beau. Watch your ass.
I definitely do have to watch my butt. So but let's talk about in light of this. Let's start talking about the BlizzCon stuff because I want to talk about some Overwatch stuff. Overwatch, the big new game, there wasn't a lot revealed as new because the big thing last year was that Overwatch was released. But the payment model for Overwatch has been brought forward, and a lot of people speculated it'd be free to play in the same way that a lot of these games are, so that you'd end up spending $10 per hero, then 10 times, $200-$300 later, you're like sunk. Overwatch is actually going to have an upfront price of $40, and it's going to unlock all the playable heroes. They're going to launch with 21 characters, so you get them all. Like the idea is you get them all. There is an Origins edition, however, for $60, which gives you some like 5 skins. So
Is that only for console? That Origins edition? I thought it was only for console.
So the $40 edition. Oh, I don't know if the Origins edition is console only, or if you can pay the $40 on console. That's something that's not clear to me. Yeah, it's a good question. I would think that because on PC in the Blizzard store, you can definitely buy it for PC for $40 and not get the extras. I would think that they'd have a $40 edition as well for PC and Xbox. It sort of doesn't make sense.
The big deal though, the big deal is that and we're jumping the gun a bit here. It was announced for consoles, which is the second Blizzard release on this system of console. But I think that changes. I think their pay model is directly related to releasing for consoles. I bet.
Yeah, very likely. And that could be only the Origins edition is the version that you get on consoles, because that seems like a more console appropriate price tag is $70. Keeping in mind that on PC, Blizzard keeps everything, and for Xbox and PlayStation 4, they've got to pay a cut to Xbox and PlayStation 4 to have their game on there. So I could see it just being the $60 version. Releases in spring 2016. And I'm positive they haven't said anything about their plans, but there'll definitely be microtransactions. If they have skins in the game, that means you'll be able to buy skins at some point. Maybe they'll be $10 a pop or something like that. Certainly, there'll be the type of game that it is too. There'll be map packs and purchases all along the way. So that game is going to nickel and dime you like crazy. You're not, that the link there to the Candy Crush news is that it's not far off from this new world of gaming that is shying away from, like, man, only sucker game companies charge $60 up front and don't get any, leave sales on the floor after. We have people that are fans of our game that are willing to shell out for all the neat skins and neat extra content. So
it's all about payment per game unit now, payment per gamer. If you do an average of a game's price, the DLC content or extras you can buy, and all this, and in a way that it rewards, like as many problems as I have with it, it kind of rewards game developer or the gamers that are most into that game. I know people who have played The Witcher that I'm in love with and that have dropped in the prologue, and they paid full price for the game, and I've paid full price for the game and put in hundreds of hours. So like I'm much more likely to want to buy like little extra things and more content and all of that. And in a way, I feel like the developer deserves that money from me because I've gotten so much more out of it than a lot of other people would have, right? So
yeah, your dollar. This is your calculation is your dollar spent per hour played or something like that,
or even hour enjoyed. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a big conversation that we could dive into. But I just want to say, I think there's a limit. Like, back when DLC felt special, then it's like, oh, yeah, of course we'll buy it. There's a point where you flood and overload people with that kind of stuff. And I do believe we're getting there. I know, I'm like, I can only afford to sustain so many games that have a limit on how much I can spend on it. So, I guess Activision Blizzard wants to have their stable of games be where people want to spend that money more than their competitors. I don't
And
know.
we talked about I firmly believe that we talked about lifestyle games last show. I firmly believe that every single game developed by Activision Blizzard or sorry, the Blizzard side of Activision Blizzard is designed to be a lifestyle game. It's designed to be a game that you play throughout the year. Maybe you drop in, you drop out, you get extra content here and there. Like Hearthstone isn't a game you just play for like, you know, 2 weeks and then never play again. It's like a game you pick up every once in a while throughout the year, and that's like a lifestyle game. And I think that that's where Blizzard figures their gravy is. Like when they were making way back in the GameCube, PS2 era, they were making StarCraft Ghost, which was like a campaign, like single player campaign game set in the StarCraft universe.
Hmm.
And even way further back than that, after Warcraft 2, they were making Warcraft Adventures, which was an adventure game with sort of a cartoon art style. Neither of these games came to release. And I realize now, looking at what games were released and why those games weren't released, part of the reason that they weren't released, I'm sure that they were canceled, is that Blizzard just doesn't make those games anymore. Like the games that have a beginning and an end, they make lifestyle games for better or for worse. I think generally for better.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. Like they do have campaigns and stories, but the long-term plan for all of them is to not end at the game end. Like when I play, I don't know, when you play Witcher 3, when you get to the end of the story, you're probably going to be done with it at least for a while. You may never come back, maybe you will. Who knows? But there's a finish line there, and you're right that their games are open-ended. And that sort of leads me to my thoughts on Overwatch, which is I was hoping for some announcements about some more gameplay modes, like some PvE content or larger scale maps. And it looks like I think they're just going with that small, skirmish. It's average match 7 minutes. I feel the gameplay has a very limited scope in Overwatch, so nothing new there. They may still surprise and announce more things as it goes forward. It does look like it's going to be a lot of fun. The art and VO, as always, is amazing. The gameplay, from what I hear from people who are in the beta test, is super fun. I was just hoping for a bit more like map wise or gameplay engagement wise, and we may still see that stuff. 3 new heroes were announced. So Diva is a StarCraft 2 pro player. Part of the Overwatch fiction is that she was recruited to be a mecha user, and she has a pink bunny mecha that she uses to shoot people, and she can self-destruct it. It's really awesome. I think you'd actually really like it if you haven't seen it, Crofton. She's basically a pro video game player turned soldier. Then there's May, a climatologist who uses ice to make ice walls and to freeze people. And Genji, a dude with a samurai sword. Probably the one you actually going to like, Crofton, because he yells in Japanese and cuts people to pieces.
I've heard some of the characters are like maybe close to being racial stereotypes or whatever. I hope it's not too racist.
No, well, okay, so the games take place on Earth, right? Like in the near future Earth. And they have people representative from all nations. So there are definitely cultural and racial indicators about people, right? Like the brown skinned woman is named Farah. That's like a very Pharaoh. It's a very regional name, but there's nothing like she's badass. There's nothing really racist about it. I don't.
Well,
think,
this is my barometer, and I honestly don't know. So I'm gonna ask you right now: is there a Jamaican character?
No. Lucio,
Okay.
I believe he's South American of some kind. I think
Oh, that sounded pretty close. Does he have dreadlocks?
he has dreadlocks, and he rolls around on.
I'm sorry, Beau.
He skates around on rollerblades, and he says, "Give it up to the beat," and he loves hip hop music. That's his big thing.
God.
Yeah, but the thing is about what is it racist? Like they're definitely like it's not like the only person of color is a hip hop guy, and then all the stereotypes. Like there are a number, of people of color in it in the game. In fact, the 2 best characters from the Overwatch panel that were stated were both like Farah and Symmetra. It isn't like I think
No.
there's a wide
But it's the
spread of
Street
cultural.
Fighter 2 effect. Like Ryu is the best Street Fighter in Street Fighter 2, but he's still a caricature, as are all of them. And when you
Sure.
do a caricature of a race, it's always kind of like Street Fighter 2 was made in Japan in the 90s, so we sort of give it a pass when Zangief starts dancing, doing that Russian dance when he wins. But I just thought that we had moved sort of beyond some of this stuff. But I recognize that like it's hard to design characters, and I'm sure that there's going to be tons and tons of heroes. And once it populates itself a bit, I'm sure I won't even notice the.
I would say like the character's nationality is somewhat accentuated in the character's design of each people. Like it's definitely there. I'm sure someone who studies this stuff will find ways to feel like this, engenders racist thoughts and still draws things, around body image issues and all of that kind of stuff. Blizzard's not exempt from this stuff. I think they do make some efforts in contrast to other game companies, but yeah, there isn't they do like one of the things I know they have a gay character in it. I'm not sure which one it is, but they're going to have that's going to feature as a storyline in it. So I feel like this game is making an effort to be inclusive of everybody, but yes, it is caricature, and there isn't. Overwatch's intention is not to be a story about racism.
As long as his
sexuality.
like superpower isn't like
It
sodomy or
is in
something.
the tradition of shooters. It is a murder simulator. So no matter how sentimental you get about this kind of stuff, the core gameplay is pointing a gun at people and shooting them. Like that is enough to be like this is not a place for this kind of deep discussion. But
So
you're
let's
correct.
move to the next Blizzard game, which
Yeah.
is much less violent in its overtones, and that is the collectible card game I mentioned earlier, Hearthstone. Beau,
Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. Yeah,
what's
so
your-
big new announcement. They have a new adventure mode, the single player PvE stuff that gets you new cards called the League of Explorers. And basically, rather than be like a raid from Warcraft, this is more you get to visit a couple of vanilla WoW dungeons, and you get to enjoy Bran Bronzebeard, Elise Starseeker, Reno Jackson, and Sir Finley Murgleton on a quest to put together this thing called the Staff of Origination. So each wing offers you, just like traditional stuff, one piece and a bunch of new cards to unlock.
question?
Yeah.
Those names you just read, are they people that Blizzard fan folk would know?
So Bran Bronzebeard is a frequent, makes frequent appearances as an NPC in World of Warcraft. I think everyone knows Bran Bronzebeard, maybe most notably for the Ulduar raid, but he's in a lot of places. He founded the League of Explorers, which is a faction within World of Warcraft. So he's definitely there. The other characters are new, especially like, I don't know, they're all kind of funny. Like Reno Jackson is such a bro. Like he's such a human with a big mutton chop mustache. And Sir Finley Murgleton is like, he's got a monocle. He's a Murloc with a monocle that speaks very properly, but he's still a Murloc. I don't know. There's some crazy cards in there. They all got spoiled, so usually there's a lot of teasing. It's getting released Thursday, so like in 3 days. With all these other game releases, there is a new Hearthstone adventure starting to release in a few days. It's going to be 700 gold per wing, $20 for the whole shebang. The notable cards in there, there's a lot of great stuff. There's one called an Explorer's Hat, which is like an Indiana Jones hat that you get to put on a guy. And if that guy dies, it adds a death rattle where you get the hat back, just like, Indiana Jones movies where you get to swipe your hat back. You keep getting the hat. And Elise Starseeker, when she comes into play, you get a card called Map to the Golden Monkey that gets put into your deck, so it's not in your hand. If you draw it and play the map, you get a golden monkey put into your deck. And then if you draw that and play that, it turns all of your remaining cards in your deck and hand into legendaries. It's kind of bonkers. It's really hard to pull off, but it's like like if you have 20 cards left in your deck and 5 in your hand, boom, they all become brand new legendaries at random.
Damn.
So there's some real flashy stuff. Looks like a lot of fun. They're really killing it with the Hearthstone stuff.
Yeah,
coming out
it's
Thursday.
it's funny. They must know that it doesn't matter when they release that Hearthstone's got its own market, because you're right, it's a pretty busy week. Even Blizzard themselves are putting out StarCraft 2, which we'll talk about later.
Yep. So Hearthstone's hopping. They also had their, like every game, they had their world championship as well, and someone won a big pile of money. This Ostaka guy from Europe. I don't remember which country. I want to say Sweden, maybe, or Norway.
They're all the same.
No. Let's not do. After that, like Overwatch it's kind of racist, right? You're just like all those European people are the same. Nice, classy. All right, let's move on. Warcraft movie trailer got shown at the opening ceremony. Did you have a chance to check it out?
Of course, I watched it.
Yeah,
it was
what
it was high on Reddit for a while too. That's where I saw it.
And so what did you in this world of episode 7 coming soon? Where on the hype meter did this trailer leave you?
Okay, now I think I'd like to, before I answer your question, I would like to throw that back at you, because I honestly believe there's two. I've looked at a lot of reaction on this trailer.
Sure.
I honestly have. So I believe that there's essentially two reactions, and I think that we may have those two reactions. So let's start with you. What was your reaction?
So my reaction, my initial viewing of it was, I liked it, but I wasn't super excited about it the first time I watched it through. Yeah, and part of the reason for that was it was sandwiched inside a ton of announcements at Blizzard. We're going to talk a little bit more about what came out. That I think it was hard. I think there was too much announcing overload that it kind of didn't stand out as the most exciting thing about that announcement. I did watch it later. I've watched it since. I think they held a lot back from this. I think, and so my hype has been steadily growing. Like, I'm really excited to see this movie. More excited than to see the Star Wars. If I had to choose between two, I would see the Warcraft movie. If I was about to die, I could see one movie. I'm interested in what the Warcraft movie has to offer more so than Star Wars. I want to see them both really bad, though.
Yeah.
So I'm
when
really
I
interested.
on our other podcast, Good, Bad, or Bullshit, when we were talking about Star Wars, we did a whole episode on it one time. I mentioned how I was more excited for at that time, the Avengers movie, and my take on that at the time was that it's more of the now, whereas Star Wars is like revisiting stuff from our youth, and Warcraft, again, like, while the game series has been around for a long time, it's of the now. Like, this is the first movie. I got a kick in the pants watching, before the trailer even started, watching the Blizzard logo come up for a film, as opposed to like a game. I was like, oh shit, they're really doing this. But then I watched it, and I had watched the teaser trailer the week before, and I was kind of like, you had made some good sales on the teaser trailer, the Griffin and all this sort of stuff. I was like, oh yeah. But then I saw the full trailer, and I was like, oh man, I'm really concerned about this movie. And I'll tell you the main things that I'm concerned about. And I'm clearly not alone. Like, I've gone, and I think the top comment on Reddit was like, is it just me, or does this movie look like shit? And I'm willing to give the director who's directed Moon and a couple of other great films a lot of credit here, and hope that it's good. Also, I'm not a huge Warcraft fan. Like, I've played Warcraft games before, but I'm not, like, I never even really played WoW. But the movie to me looks like, and I'm echoing what a lot of people said online here, it looks really CG, like really CG, to the point that I feel like it would have benefited from being a CG movie. And, like, I mean, all the kids movies, I'm not saying it's a kids movie, but all the kids movies that come out are CG only, a lot of them. And I feel like this movie would have benefited from that. I felt like they really tried to preserve the look of the Warcraft universe, which I feel was designed originally so that it could run well on a lot of computers. Like, the armors are all blocky. I remember in Warcraft 3, all the big wide shoulders and all that sort of stuff. It's great. It's a cartoony art style, but when you're doing a realistic movie, and then the actors, oh my God, like, the lines that they were delivering in the movie, like, if you in the trailer, if you listen to those lines, I was like, oh God, it seemed poor. And then finally, the storyline that they presented in the trailer seemed very similar to stuff like Dances with Wolves, Avatar, all those movies where it's like there are two races that hate each other, but then, like, one of them joins the other race and all that sort of stuff.
I think
so. Anyway,
that is the Warcraft story, though. Like,
Oh, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter that you can come up with a story that's been done 18 times before in a video game form and get away with it, but in movies it's a little harder. People will be
Yeah.
like, "I just saw this movie. I liked it when it was called Avatar." But yeah, so all those things have led me to have extremely low expectations, and my concern is this movie rep and Assassin's Creed with Michael Fassbender are what I don't want to say the last hurrah for video game movies, but if neither of these movies hits big, I'm concerned we'll never see another video game movie again. Like there's a lot on the line for these, and I think this Warcraft movie is going to sell super well to Blizzard fanboys. I'm not sure how well it's going to sell
Look,
to people outside.
Transformers was received a ton of hate that first go around. Like there was a lot of the similar sentiment. It did really well, and they're still making the movie. Like there's a
But
fifth one on the way.
it dealt
So,
in nostalgia, like with
but but
all.
but it does deal in nostalgia, and it has its audience. But there's a large vocal contingent against against CG movies in particular. Like there are a lot of people who really like to bandwagon on the CG thing, and they're not wrong. This there are a lot of imperfections. There's the storyline because the spectacle takes a front seat. A lot of the storyline tends to take a back seat and not be very compelling. Um, but you know, I've my thoughts on this are just like we want to get to a place in cinema where we have these seamless, amazing experiences. So we've got to take these steps along the way, and Warcraft is deciding to do it now, and I'm sure it's going to take a bullet if people don't like some of what the CG stuff has to offer, and that's just our path to better and better CG movies. Because I think on this movie, given a lot of what they've said about it, is they're really pushing the envelope technically. Whether that translates into something we enjoy or not, you know, like that for you as a consumer, it's totally fair to say I don't want to spend money on this because it doesn't look good. But I think again the Duncan Jones pick for the director lends a lot of credibility to for people that want to give this a try who know about film directors. And
On the other hand, though, like I've seen, like he doesn't have heavyweight clout, and I could see him being pushed around by studios. My other thing with regards to the picture is I do find like sometimes something is adapted for film. So like a book, a movie,
yeah,
sorry, a book, a TV show, a video game, or a comic, anything. It's adapted for film, and people will criticize it and saying it's not being faithful to the film or the movie or whatever, it's not being faithful. It's taking too many creative liberties, and sometimes those creative liberties are necessary. Every once in a while, a movie like Sin City will come along that does it literally frame by frame from a graphic novel, and
yeah,
you know it's an exact take on it. But more often than not, you can't do that. You've got to adapt it in some way. And I think what's interesting about the Warcraft movie is they have clearly adapted, and this is Blizzard's involvement for sure, the look wholesale of the video games. Like they've said, okay, we're not changing anything from even if it may make sense or whatever, it's going to be exactly the way it is in the video game. And I think that'll be it'll be sort of like, are the fanboys right, or are the fanboys are going to get exactly what they want. They won't be able to go into that movie and say they weren't faithful to the look, the feel of Warcraft. Like I don't know that much about Warcraft, but in the trailer even I spotted things where I'm like, oh yeah, I used to build those, or whatever. um it will for sure follow all that stuff. What what uh, i'm i'm curious if it's good, then it will be sort of like it will justify all that. But if it's bad, then it may be pointing to the fact that you've got to be a little creative in adapting these properties. We'll see. I'm not optimistic, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
yeah. I think a lot of people share that, like with anything new and beloved. I think a lot of people, share that hesitancy to just be like, they haven't seen the thing that's going to make them rave about it. I don't think the story. I don't think we're looking at like I don't know the Pianist or Schindler's List or something. It's going to be an epic kind of good versus evil with shades of gray kind of story. We know Gul'dan features in this, and he's a recurring bad guy in the series. So there will be some villains. I think the big thing from this is going to be the CG spectacle. Medivh is a mage in this. We haven't seen any CG to do with magic spells recognizable from the franchise or abilities or things like that. I think we're in for a lot in terms of that CG stuff, including, we've seen orcs and we've seen humans and we have an half orc. Do we see any of the other races factor into this as well? I think they're holding a lot back, so I'm staying optimistic. And it's also another year out, so there's still a lot that can happen between now and then in terms of what we start getting teased. I think the trailer was good. I think I'm with you. I want it to be good. Hopefully it's I think no doubt they're putting their best effort forward, but we'll see. I mean, Blizzard cinematics have this reputation of being awesome cinematics. Even if the game, you don't love it, you can still watch a cinematic and be impressed by it. I know it's the studio making the movie and not Blizzard, but that Blizzard name carries that associated expectation. So
I sort of wish the whole movie had just been cinematic. That's it.
Yeah, you might not be wrong. I mean, I'd sit through 2 hours of Blizzard cinematic if they made a movie
me too.
of it. So, and speaking of awesome Blizzard cinematics, there was a new one directly after WoW Legion, the upcoming expansion, got a release date of next September. This has a lot of Warcraft fans kind of not so happy about it because the pacing of expansion packs has been every 2 years. And they were starting to make promises about it being, every 1 year we get an expansion. But this is basically turning into 2 years. So that was, I think people took that negatively. But this is the game company that releases it when it's ready. So I don't kind of understand that. There are other games to go play. Go play them. Tons of Blizzard ones too. But there was a new trailer. It features Varian Wrynn and Sylvanas. People were very stoked to see Sylvanas. And some of the sentiment I saw on Twitter and associated places is that people enjoyed that cinematic much more than they did the Warcraft trailer, just because of that coolness factor. It's got Sylvanas, it's got airships, and it has the Burning Crusade in it, which people love. It was a very good trailer. I recommend you watch it. They're doing lots to make the game more streamlined. Not enough time to go into it all here. So if you're a fan of that stuff, I recommend you go to a news site and check out. There's a ton of details. Notably, though, is that there are no more weapon drops for people. Basically, you're going to get an artifact weapon, and you'll be just upgrading it, it's kind of a big deal in an MMO. You expect to get items and weapons and stuff, and so now weapons, there'll just be no more weapon drops for you. So they're taking the game in kind of strange direction, I think. Not a bad one, just they're doing things with this idea that the audience they're trying to cater to is not someone that's going to play 24 hours a day and grinding out all the stuff. They're trying to gear it more towards the casual MMO player so that they get a chance to experience all the content that's worth experiencing but not have to put in crazy amounts of time. So I recommend you check it out and check out the trailer. That's the Warcraft stuff.
I also heard that Blizzard's not going to be reporting World of Warcraft subscriber numbers anymore in favor of other metrics in terms of recording how played it is.
If WoW Legion does really well, I think they may turn around and release that.
It's very possible. It's clearly reporting on the numbers was just it was essentially a tuning of their own horn, so to speak. Yeah. I do think that World of Warcraft has to be on the downswing. It's been over 10 years. I think that they have thought about successors, and I'm sure are thinking about what the next steps are. So in terms of all these like expansions, I'm curious, Beau, how long they'll keep going for, because I feel like at one point they'll just be World of Warcraft 2. Boom, it'll just be announced.
Notably, Chris Metzen was at Nerdtacular on the live stream, and he mentioned that a little bit, and it's more for them. It's a game they're just going to keep supporting and have ongoing, even if it become, it doesn't. This is subscriber base doesn't matter in terms of the game continuing on. Like, if it goes down to 100,000 people playing it, they may not, they may not be new X packs, but it'll still exist in some way. This is a company that Diablo 2 servers are still running. Like, you can still go log online and play Diablo 2 online with people, so the game will be out there. And I don't know, like this is the MMO company. That's why it's so crazy to think that they're not going to be releasing another MMO. And one wonders if Warcraft finally, sort of the sun starts to set on it, what they would do. They would say like, well, we need an MMO in our stable. It's part of our. Not only is it part of what people define them by their perceptions. I don't think they're a company that makes decisions like that. But if you're a company that's really good at making tires, why would you turn around and start making ladders? Why would you stop making tires and start making ladders? Like tires are what you're known for. So I feel like that's always going to be looming over them. And I think I don't know. I think that's what I think they'll push the envelope on that if Warcraft finally does have its sunset on it. I just don't see them never doing that kind of stuff again. They have too many talented people working on that.
Quickly here, Diablo 3.
Diablo 3, lots of changes coming up for Season 4. Was hoping for a big announcement. We didn't get one. So there's going to be new zones, new adventure mode content, like 40 new items. They're still supporting the game. Speaking of a game that, was released a long time ago, they're still putting out new content for people like me to give them a reason to log back in and play and see all the sweet stuff.
How long ago was it released? Not that long ago.
Diablo 3, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
No way. Was it that long ago?
Yep. They had an expansion pack which really rejuvenated the game. In fact, a lot of people say it made it way better. They got rid of the auction house. Let me quickly look it up because I'm curious.
Yeah, you could be. You know what? You could be right.
May 15th, 2012. So okay, that's not that long ago, but it's going on. It's 3 years. 3 years
in Blizzard time. That's not long.
13, 14. Yeah, I guess it's about 3 years now. It doesn't seem like it. Seems like it should be shorter than that. But think about all the games that have a release of 3 years that people still play. I don't even remember what was released 3 years ago. Like
well, that's it. Like they designed their games to be played like this year in, year out. That's why there's these seasons in Diablo.
Yeah. So, but not a ton of news unless you're a Diablo fan. Not a lot made it to the surface in terms of news sites. So quickly, Diablo 3. That's the big and small. Here's the Storm. If you want to hear me talk detail about that game, I do a podcast strictly about that. Check out Core Heroes really quick. 3 new heroes were released. Gen Greymane, who's a Worgen, transforms into a human. He's a werewolf guy. Lunara, the one I'm most excited about. It's a Dryads. She's a unit in the original Warcraft RTSs. And she hops around like a deer and she poisons people. Looks awesome. Most excited for that. They announced a Tracer hero coming with the launch of Overwatch. They just showed a model, didn't release any other information. That's exciting. But the craziest thing of all, and maybe the thing you should log in and play Heroes with me to do, is Cho'Gall's coming. He's a 2-headed ogre, and his gameplay mechanic is that he's one hero, but he's controlled by 2 players.
Oh, that's sweet. So, it's funny. I remember those 2-headed ogres from Warcraft way back in Warcraft 2, double clicking on them and having the different voice macros and stuff.
Yeah. So they're totally like that. They're like, in the intro trailer, one of them's like, they punch each other in the head because they're angry at each other.
I have a question before you go on about this. So, is there a limit? I don't play Heroes. Is there a limit of how many players per team?
Yeah, 5. So if you pick him, you'll have 4 players on your team.
Okay, so he doesn't have a way of sneaking in an extra player onto your team.
So you'll have one less person present, but you're like a raid boss in terms of how much health you have and how much like damage you can put out. Apparently.
You have to work collaboratively.
Yeah, and their one is like some of their abilities. So one guy's the warrior; he controls where you move and he does all the punching, and the other guy is the mage who shoots spells. So like the warrior will roll a bowling ball. And then it's up to the magic user to detonate it. So it's like it's like if you and I are playing, you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna throw a bowling ball and detonate it. And you'd be like, okay, I'm ready, detonate it. Like there's this element of
that's cool
coordination required. So you can't just pick them and then you're in your own ecosystem. It's really important that you work together to leverage his strengths. And the big news with him is that people who bought the virtual ticket or attended BlizzCon are getting him for free, as well as certain people they're seeding for free. And the way that you get him is that someone has to play 2 games with you. You invite a friend who doesn't have it to play a game with you 2 times, and then they get it for free. And if you share that love 4 times, you'll get like 2,000 gold for buying stuff in the game economy. So he's effectively going to be a free hero they're releasing. Also very cool. There's a new map called Towers of Doom. Not much to say. If you're into that kind of stuff, go check it out. Looks really cool. Has the Headless Horseman. New game mode called Arena, where it's just like sort of Hearthstone, where it just rolls a random bunch of heroes you can play. There's no leveling up. You're all level 10, and you just go and smash face on a really small map. The great thing about this is that all the heroes are available to play. You don't have to own any of them. It's just like Hearthstone. Well, actually, it's not even like Hearthstone because you don't even need to buy in. You can just play
I was
going to
ask you that.
You just log in and be like, I don't own anything. I have nothing. Let me play Arena. It's just free to play. It's not going to be, I think, like an official competitive mode, but it's going to be fun and a way for you to play the game without having to spend a single dime or own anything. Big news on MMR improvements. Again, check out Core Heroes. I think we're going to talk a lot about that on the Core Show.
It's MMR.
MMR is your matchmaking, so there's some concerns with high-ranking players getting matched with new players and steamrolling them, things like that. There's a big concern with matchmaking. And Kim Fan, their senior esports person, announced that there's a new esports league happening. With this year, the prize pool for the Heroes World Championship was $500,000. They're going to do that 3 times in 2016. So there's a new esports scene happening, and this is what I talked about a little bit, them needing to desync from BlizzCon because so much happens over that weekend that it's just too much for people to really enjoy. So that's cool. So that's the hero stuff. StarCraft 2, it's launching tomorrow or today, depending, or has recently launched, depending on when you hear this. So they only had what is the future of StarCraft 2 panel at BlizzCon, where they talked about ongoing mission packs as DLC for StarCraft. So if your journey in StarCraft is over and you're sad about it, fear not. They are going to deliver more campaign missions for you to download.
Story based?
Yeah. So the first one is called Nova Covert Ops, and you play as Nova, doing stealthy Nova things, with units and things like that. So the game is going to be still an ongoing esport. I think the World Championship of StarCraft 2 was really big as well. There are a lot of talent. I've watched a bit of it. There's some crazy talented people playing that game.
I'm really surprised they went with this week for StarCraft 2. Like I got a Best Buy calendar or whatever. And they always highlight the video games on what are on sale, like a paper one in my junk mailbox. And I opened it and it's like, follow this, follow that. Tomb Raider this, and then it's like, you may also be interested in Heroes of the StarCraft 2, blah blah blah, Heart of the Swarm, or whatever it is. But see, the thing is that I guess they don't make their money, like people buy that electronically, they're not buying it from Best Buy per se, so maybe they don't see the need to highlight it. But I do still think that it's weird Blizzard to launch. Probably would StarCraft 2 be their biggest release of this year, Beau?
StarCraft, I don't know. Heroes officially got released this year.
So maybe Heroes would be their biggest release.
Like, it's weird to grok it because it was an open beta. Like, you could just pay to get in.
No, I know, but it's officially released.
But Heroes was released. StarCraft 2 was released. I think that's it for releases in 2015. I mean, there was a Hearthstone Hearthstone thing that I think the Grand Tournament happened this year. Black Rock Mountain happened.
They must know their base, and they must know that like they're not going to be playing Fallout, or they might not going to be playing Tomb Raider. They'll be playing StarCraft. They've got it marked on their calendars or whatever. So that's the only, because it's 3 huge games in 1 week. It's very rare you see that sort of thing.
One of the things that was interesting is that this Chris Ziggedy, who's like a senior guy for the StarCraft team, when they were doing, I think it was one of the tournaments, I can't remember exactly what it was, he came out to talk, I think it was when they were launching the trailer. He mentioned that according to their statistics, that like the StarCraft players, it's always a consistent number, where a lot of their games, like Warcraft players, when something new happens in Heroes of the Storm, they'll go to Heroes, or something new happens in Hearthstone, they go to Hearthstone. Like, they see spikes in the numbers based on release, people going to game. He shared that they don't see that with StarCraft. Essentially, the people who like StarCraft just play StarCraft year round and don't leave when there's a new Diablo season. They're not leaving StarCraft to go play Diablo. People that care about StarCraft are just into StarCraft for the most
I
part.
guess that makes sense in the sense that it's a bit of a different flavor. Just like I could see when Overwatch launches, I could see the people who play Overwatch only playing that, not necessarily having the same interest. Whereas I look at Heroes, I look at Diablo, they look similar to me from the outside, you know?
Yeah, and they are. It's Heroes is kind of PvP Diablo. I mean, that isn't a far stretch to sort of draw that link. All right. So I think that covers the major areas of BlizzCon. Crofton, do you have any questions before we move on?
No, Beau, I feel like my Blizzard news has been sated.
Yeah, and
It was
it was such a
not.
broad overview. I mean, there's so much to discuss in depth, but Crofton can only contribute so much because he's not the Blizzard, raving fan that I am. So I think we did it justice. I think I feel pretty good about it. And if you want to hear more about the hero stuff, again, check out Core. But there's
So the
other
big
things.
games released this week are Fallout 4 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, and for a long time, people were predicting one of them was going to blink, probably Tomb Raider, not release in the same week. Neither of them did. They have released. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a timed exclusive for Xbox One, meaning that it's out this year for Xbox One, beginning Q1 of next year for PC, and then Q4 of next year for PS4. Um, as I have a PC and a PS4, no Xbox One, I'm not going to be able to play it. But I did mention that my friend worked on it. I played the last Tomb Raider game, the relaunch, and I've talked about it a bit on the show, but my system wasn't particularly beefy enough maybe to handle it, or I was too stubborn to turn the graphics down, so maybe I didn't get the smooth performance I wanted. But I didn't quite like it as much as I liked the Uncharted games, even though I recognize it had more gameplay. You could upgrade stuff. Beau, did you play that one? I forget.
What, Uncharted or the first one?
No, the Tomb Raider
No,
redo.
I own it though, and I actually when I watched I watched the GameSpot review of Rise of the Tomb Raider, it made me want to download and install Tomb Raider because
Yeah.
it I bought it for a reason. I should play the damn thing.
You will
Yeah.
probably like it, especially not having played Uncharted. It's in a way it's not fair to compare them so much. That there's some things they do very similarly, and there's some things that Tomb Raider charts its own path with. But I feel like that's a game that got better critical reviews than people were anticipating. I think everybody was like, "Oh, the Fallout is going to just crush them," and all this sort of stuff. But I look at the reviews and they are very similar in review score, and that's flattering for Rise of the Tomb Raider and not so much for Fallout 4. And I think a lot of people were kind of holding their breath before declaring Game of the Year or what is the Game of the Year. There's a couple of titles being bandied about, but the one left on not on the table was Fallout 4. People were like, "What about Fallout 4? Fallout 4 will be Game of the Year. Fallout 4 Game of the Year is coming soon." Now it's come out. Reviews are out. Let me be straight up and say they're uniformly excellent reviews, but I think we may be reaching the point of Bethesda overload, and I don't mean that in the sense that they put out many games, because God knows they don't. But I think that everybody collectively agrees that Fallout 4 is an improvement on Fallout 3, but not a reinvention. So I mean, a, you're getting an enhanced version of Fallout 3 in the same way that Skyrim was an enhanced version of Oblivion. And as games get crazier and crazier, I think that that may no longer be enough. I think this is the last time they can do that. I think the next Bethesda game that comes out is going to have to bring some new shit to the table.
Well, what occurs to me about all these concurrent releases is that the games are very different genres, and I feel like there's a type of player who's going to appreciate Tomb Raider that's not going to want to play Fallout 4. There are a lot of people who don't like the Elder Scrolls Bethesda RPG games. So, I mean, I think I think in the end, I think they have all these games, including the StarCraft game, which is coming out, and Hearthstone. They all have their audiences, and people are the right people are going to go to the right place. Like they all, it's not like there's two adventure games. You know, I think there's enough customers for all of them. Your thoughts on Fallout 4? I saw the review, and the thing that stuck out to me was that like the facial tech, like there's no upgrade to the way people look, like the facial textures and the animations, like
It's a graphics thing.
you know the graphics like are not a huge, don't feel like a huge bump, but then it doesn't matter because like the point of these games is that immersive RPG element. Like at the end of the day, you don't go to play Fallout because you want a great shooter or you want a great linear narrative. You want open world storytelling, immersiveness, in sort of a meaningful agency in that world. To me, the question is, how does Fallout 4 stack up against The Witcher, which we're not going to be able to know until one of us, well, you play it because you've played both.
The other dark horse, or not dark horse, some would say favorite in that race of game of the year is Metal Gear Solid 5.
Didn't that get tens? Like, isn't that a tens game?
In The Witcher did, and like
Okay.
here's the thing is you're not wrong when you say that there's different games for different folks, and I would agree that Tomb Raider is more of a casual game, and that like somebody like my brother could see it on TV and be like, oh, that looks sick, look at all that stuff, and then pick up the controller and actually play it. But games like Fallout and games like The Witcher 3 and games like Metal Gear require a certain level of video game familiarity and knowledge to get into. And so I think that I think Fallout is exactly what everybody expected it to be, which is more and better Fallout. But the problem is like, and I loved Fallout 3, I really did, but I didn't finish it. I did so much side content that I finally like I petered out and I didn't finish it. I never played Fallout New Vegas. I own it. It's one of those games I haven't installed. And part of me feels like instead of shelling out the cash and buying Fallout 4, I should just install Fallout New Vegas. I've heard a lot of good things about it. But yeah, like it just feels like I haven't had this acute desire to play more Fallout. And at first I thought that was a symptom of those games. Like Skyrim, I never finished as well. Oblivion, never finished. I never finished those games, even though I put countless hours into doing side quests. I never finished them. The Witcher 3, I am still playing, and I'm heading towards the end. And I recognize now that I think that part of the reason I never finished these games is that there is never that drive to, and The Witcher 3 really has that for me. I would, I have no doubt knowing that Fallout 4 is more of Fallout, that I will enjoy it, but I also feel like for me it's not gonna best The Witcher. I'll have to Metal Gear I'm holding out on because it's a totally different style of game. Maybe it's different in a way that I won't be anticipating, but I can sort of predict what Fallout is. I know I'll enjoy it, but there's no way it tops The Witcher. For me, I can tell you right now, The Witcher is pretty much very close to my top single player game of all time. So, I mean, for game of the year 2015 for Crofton, it's The Witcher's to lose, right? So I just don't see Fallout doing it. That said, I'm still super interested in playing it. I'm interested in playing Tomb Raider. So I'll get to I'll hopefully get to those games.
Let's
eventually.
say that these are good problems to have. If you're, gameless, you want a new experience, you've got a couple of really good choices. I mean, it's very positive that, these are reviewing well. It doesn't mean you have to play every game at launch.
But I will say it is a pleasant problem, but it's becoming a problem because these games like The Witcher 3 is hundreds of hours, and I haven't even got into the expansion content I bought. And then there's a new expansion that's going to be coming out. Meanwhile, Metal Gear Solid 5, people are talking about hundreds of hours. Fallout 4, people are talking about hundreds of hours. Rise of the Tomb Raider is considered a svelte game in comparison, and it's still like, they're talking like 20, 30 hours. I'm like, it's a lot of time. Like, you're buying a game now, and it's not just like a 6-hour campaign. Call of Duty still got its 6-hour campaign, but those games with those like, even 12 hours Last of Us style campaigns, they're almost gone now. It's all big games, and I only have so much time.
The issue with gaming is that when you really like a game, you want it to be 100 hours. And when you really just want to try a game and like it a little bit, but not necessarily love it. You want it to be a 10-hour experience. But the problem is people can't just make games that way. You can be like, oh, I like Tomb Raider, but it was a great 5 hours, and I'm happy. But someone who really loves Tomb Raider wants it to be 1,000 hours of Tomb Raider. So
It's sort of like dating. Some people you want to marry, some people you just want to go on a few dates with, and some people you just want to have fun with, like, and so I think
that was
in
a
the case,
svelte comparison.
so I just say, right now, Witcher 3 is looking to be my bride in the gaming front.
All right. Well, if you're a Fallout 4 fan, this news you'll make you very happy. The VP of PR and Marketing, Pete Hines, has created a templated doctor's note for when you call in sick, and this is going to make it a great dialogue tree discussion one of these days. Is the fact that gaming releases more and more are celebrated, like you hear with the comment, oh, I got to take a sick day on that day. Oh boy, I'm gonna take a vacation day on that day. I'm not coming into work on that day. I've got the gaming blues. So kind of cool for him to make this thing. I'm surprised that no executive or PR guy hasn't existed before. I'm sure there may be liability issues, but I think more and more gaming fans are like, you could imagine it being a problem if like half of your company calls in sick because Fallout 4 came out, if you employ a lot of gamer fans in your company.
What's funny is Fallout 4 is coming out tomorrow. Like, we're recording on a Monday.
Yeah.
Fallout 4 is coming out tomorrow, and I'm probably going to call in sick tomorrow because I got this head cold
The
or whatever.
irony is that you're not playing Fallout 4, but your boss is going to think you are.
Yeah, well, for sure. They'll be like, so Tomb Raider and Fallout come out the same day. The Crofton calls in sick. Doubtful.
Well,
I need to download that template.
The one thing is you can point them to the show and say, no, look, I'm sick. You can hear me talking right now as sick as a dog. So
you can do your podcast, but you can't work? Priorities, Crofton. You're fired.
Yeah, I think they overestimate the quality of our product. It's good. All right. A few other little things to mention. Rocket League releases free mutator update today. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but we have talked about it, I think, where there's apparently low gravity rules and weird time warping stuff that happens. So I think they have a mode now where it's just anything goes for fun stuff. I can't wait to try it. So this is your PSA. If you're into Rocket League, there's some new crap for free happening in there. That's probably a lot of fun.
I've always been nervous about them changing the gameplay mechanics and stuff, maybe unreasonably so. But I feel like that vanilla Rocket League will still be the, say, esport type thing of choice, and the mutators will just be for fun, and I see no harm in it, so that's pretty cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, if it's got its own little ecosystem, then it's a sweet little value add to have fun with. Also,
so there was a series I'm a big fan of, the Mass Effect series. The next game, in which they've released very precious little information, called Mass Effect Andromeda, it released a little teaser this week for N7 Day, which is like, I guess, the day of the year that you celebrate Mass Effect. It was pretty. Pardon?
I said, move over, Christmas. Look out.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Well, Gears of War's got like Emergence Day. They all have some sort of day.
Well, all right. Continue. Fandom's a great thing. Continue.
So Andromeda got like a teaser, and the teaser is pretty cool because it actually kind of tugged on my heartstrings in an interesting way. There's absolutely no gameplay footage that I can tell in it. What it is essentially a series of archival footage from astronauts training and mankind's odyssey into space and all this, being voiced over by Jennifer Hale, famed for her role as FemShep, and eventually, after a shuttle takes off, the camera zooms out, and then you see, like, you zoom out of the galaxy and you see one of the mass relays or a giant Citadel-sized ship, and then it just ends. Like, she's narrated this, talking about the inspirational, journey of man into the stars, and then she finishes it with, and this is Commander Shepard signing off, and and then there's like the little Mass Effect. I don't know how to call it other than the Mass Effect sound. Like when you start a game, it's the first. It's the first musical note. You've even already sung more than it. It's the first note, and it's just like ding or whatever. Like, and and when it hits right after she's done the speech, and you've seen all this finish, and it zooms out, I just got like a little chill, and I was like, man, I'm like, I can do with me with some more Mass Effect. This is gonna be crazy, and it's neat how she signs off. So it's really a passing of the torch to the next.
So two things. For me, also it affected me the same way. I play as Fem Shep, so it's really sad to know that that's like she's like Jennifer Hale's finished with the series or whatever. It feels like it will have new voice VO for the whatever character is next. And also, just when you talk about that music, Mass Effect has some of the most iconic music that is unique and original. Like it's amazing. Like in a space where like I love Warcraft, but they're not the first movie to be like horns and timpani and you know like strings section. Like it's all very, you know, we've heard this before, and their take is great, but there's a unique space Mass Effect has carved out in its audio that that is like I think 50% of why I love Mass Effect so much, that it's borderline cheesy B-movie sci-fi music and awesome Mass Effect music that like with great sounds that is just stellar. It's so good. It is some of the best.
You know who
music
else?
in video
Another
games.
game franchise is Deus Ex. Also has a lot of people were excited they were bringing back the composer from Human Revolution.
Yeah.
For the next game, and it's the same deal. They really worked the music in that game too, and a lot, and like when you look at even the first Mass Effect and the last Deus Ex, they're definitely limited in some of what they do, but the music gives it a sense of scale and creates this atmosphere in the world, and definitely it does there. So like I'm excited. I'm excited for whatever comes next in Mass Effect. I think they did such rich world building in that universe that I can't wait to see what comes next.
Me too. I'll definitely play it. I love them on the whole. I love the Mass Effect series. So, you know, really, I really like games that have, you know, very in-depth dialogue and decision trees in the dialogue, and they're some of the best in gaming. All right, I think that covers the hour-long README TXT we've done today. Tons of news to discuss, but we're gonna, you know, spend some time doing some of our sections. The first thing that we're gonna do is talk about the games that we've played the past week.
You're always talking about making kids' minds like vegetables. Talk about them out on the street smoking pot.
This is Games Per Minute.
How do you feel about cutting his head off? One.
All right, so I'm gonna get mine out of the way real quick. I've only played Heroes of the Storm the past week. If you want to hear my thoughts on it, I have a show about it. So not much to say other than I had a good time. Crofton, have you been playing Witcher 3?
I'm Witcher 3 only this week. I'm headed to the end.
Okay.
Now I'm sort of into the third act of. It's very interesting. Now I'm returning to areas that I thought I had explored before, but there's all these dangling plot threads. One thing that I got thinking though, it was all this talk about Game of the Year, was how that I love The Witcher 3, and it is one of my favorite games. However, I can't, in good conscience, recommend it to everyone. And how like Fallout 4, or we just talked about Mass Effect. There'll be a new Mass Effect, and how like those games are. There's so much investment, not just in terms of the time that it takes to get into the game, but also like the lore of the universe. There's often other games that you need to have played to appreciate this game. Like I played most of The Witcher 1 and most of The Witcher 2, but I didn't finish either of them. And while you can play The Witcher 3 without having experienced any prior Witcher knowledge, it's hugely beneficial to have experienced it at certain points in the game. Like there's certain points you're totally like, I don't, you know, and I just hit one in the game near the very end where it's like a throwback to The Witcher 2, and or near the very end. I assume I'm near the end. Probably not.
Who knows?
Yeah, but anyway, it's just I just realized that because I'm doing all these like game of the year watch stuff, and there's all these people being like, yeah, I played The Witcher 3 for 2 hours, then quit and all this, and it drives me so insane. But I realize, it's unfair for me to think that everybody will, even though so much craftsmanship and so much work has gone into this game, it's clear that it's just not for everyone. There's some people that aren't willing to make the time investments. It's sort of the apex of playing as a like macho dude, in that you're a tough witch hunter and Geralt of Rivia with a gravel throated voice. Like, that's not going to appeal to a girl who might want to play, even though there are segments that you play as his female equivalent. So I mean, I really understand that now, as heartbreaking as it is, that your favorite games. There's something to be said for games like Tetris and Mario Kart that everybody loves. I love The Witcher 3, but like, if somebody said, "Hey, I'm looking for a good game to play," I wouldn't necessarily be able to recommend it wholeheartedly. Even you, Beau, who is a guy I think would very much like it. There are some parts I'm like, I don't know. Would he get by the prologue, or would he drop it by then? Like it's hard to know. So
It would really depend, I think, for me, if its narrative hooks in me. Like I think that's what it is. I do like a lot of what I've seen about that game, though. There's a lot of good stuff there. Well, all right. Maybe next week we'll have something new to report. But
no, probably not. But I think I'll still be playing it next week.
Well, that's the thing, is we don't play games just to like have them on the show. We play the games we want to play, and that's just how it's gonna be, guys.
And right. I've seen a lot of people say, like, when talking about the review of Fallout 4 and all this, they'll write in parentheses, "I'm still playing The Witcher 3" or whatever. like when talking about how long these games are. So.
Yeah. All right, so let's no dialogue tree this week, as we carved out a lot of time to talk about BlizzCon. What we're gonna do next is move right along to inventory management.
Inventory management is a challenging and inexact science.
All right, inventory management, where we answer the question: spend your cash or vendor trash. Crofton, what's your recommendation this week?
So, in lieu of the Fallout mania sweeping the nation, my recommendation is Fallout 3. Now, I originally played it on Xbox 360. At the time, I didn't have a computer that could run it. I now have it on computer as well. You can get tons of mods. You can make it look probably much better. But I will say that I really enjoyed the time I played it. And when I look at Fallout 4, I think to myself, like, it would be sad if somebody went to Fallout 4 and then couldn't go back to Fallout 3 due to graphics or whatever, because it's such a good game. And that's not something like that happened with previous Fallouts, like Fallout 1 and 2, which were different styles of games. Like, people would still go back to Fallout 1 even though Fallout 2 was there, and I hope people still go back to Fallout 3 as well. It's a great game, has some cool decisions that like affect massive story arcs or the way that the world is shaped. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool. I would imagine it would hold up pretty well. It's sort of, the Fallout games seem to come out with the improved version of an existing system. So Fallout 4 is on an improved Skyrim system. Fallout 3 was on an improved Oblivion system. So I mean, after Skyrim and Fallout 4, it may be like tough to look at, but it's not that bad, and I think totally worth it.
Yeah, I think if gameplay stands out, the graphics can take a back seat. So not always the most important thing. Good recommendation, my man. This week I'm going to recommend something a little off the beaten path. This was a game I really enjoyed, but it was a long time ago that I almost forgot about. It's called VVVVVVVVV. It's 6 V's. You can find it on Steam by typing 6 V's into the search bar. So what is this game? Essentially, it's an indie game by a reputed game maker. I forget his name, but he's known for making these very interesting single-player indie game experiences. And what the graphics are very low-tech. They kind of look like, old VGA games. but the gameplay is not. It plays with a controller, and it's a platformer where you can switch the polarity of gravity to be either up or down. And it has a lot of interesting puzzles with respect to this mechanic. It's $5, so it's not a lot. Go to the Steam store or wherever else you might find this game, at the Green Man Gaming or somewhere else, and check out this game. It's got a cool 8-bit soundtrack to it, sort of chiptune-y, and it's super fun. So, or just add it to your wish list, wait for a sale. Maybe that would be there. It's got overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam as well, I'd like to note. This is a highly acclaimed platformer game to show you that graphics don't necessarily mean everything when a game has smooth, buttery mechanics and responsiveness and how to play it.
And
it's hard
I will
to
say that
describe
I
the
played
game.
that game too, and it's pretty sweet. Like, and you could get it on Nintendo DS, 3DS.
Oh, nice.
And the downside is it's super. Like, I think it's like $10 unless you find a sale, which is fairly expensive for that it is an
Console
indie game.
tax, because the developers got to give more money. Well, I guess Steam would have tax too. So.
But yeah, anyway, I'd be tempted to rebuy it, even though I own it on Steam, just to have it as a portable option. So I mean, that's how good it is.
It's hard to describe. Like, when you look at a photo of it, you'll be like, huh? But when you play it, you'll be like, if you like platformers, you'll like this game. So, booyah! There you go.
That's a good pick, Beau.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that game. So, listen, if you enjoyed something and you want to share it with us, we have an email address. And you know what you can do with the email address? You can send us emails where you write things and send it to us, or even record your voice, like a voicemail, and send it to us. Send us your MP3s. You can send that at exmpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to read your stuff on the air. Please send it in if you're listening. You may think we might not be interested in hearing from you, but we are. We're a small little podcast. Let's hear from the community of people that listen to us. Have I begged and pandered enough? Okay, I'll stop there. Right in. You can find out more about our show at exmpodcast.com. There you can subscribe to us on Stitcher, iTunes. Links are all there. You can check out our Twitch channel where we stream our shows live on Monday nights around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/exmpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/exmpodcast.com. Do you see a recurring theme here? Everything has exmpodcast.com in it. Finally, if you're into our conversation today and want to check out what we do, you can go to goodbadbull.com and find Crofton and myself having with Michael Hodgins having a conversation about something selected at random by a random topic generator. Check out that podcast if you like this podcast. I know you'll like that one. Finally, Crofton, he likes to tweet things. He likes to share his thoughts with the world and let people know about his projects or his articles he might be writing for EXM or for on the IGN site. I don't know if you started that. But tell us where our listeners can find out more about what Crofton is up to and what he's thinking.
Yeah, I've been dogging it lately, but you can totally follow me at Crofted Steers on Twitter. I'll throw my thoughts at you.
Yeah, he'll throw them in tweet form straight to your brain. Far out, man. And you can find me at Beau Schwartz, where I'll tweet about whatever it is I'm up to. All right, so now that we've given you a whole bunch of information that might have gone in one ear and out the other, but hopefully you took the time to write one of those things down to check us out, we're going to move on to a little section. We like to close out the show with a performance of a video game thing of some kind called Mastergame Theater.
Now, Beau...
It's now time for Mastergame Theater.
Now, Beau, I see, and I appreciate this because you've done all the heavy lifting, what with me being sick and all, and you have chosen a Mastergame Theater quote that is short for this week. Bless your heart, and I'm sure that you will do the heavy lifting and deliver this amazing quote.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd love to do this one, but if you're not
sure,
feeling up
whatever,
to it,
I'll do it.
If you're not feeling up to it, I'm happy to be your understudy. Gross.
I know, whatever.
It's up to you, but it is mercifully short. I was considering your illness, and let's not recite some cinematic from Warcraft this week. So I guess whenever you're ready, let's.
You got to set.
Oh,
the stage.
we set this up. So there's a little game that was very fun. I know I played and Crofton played too, called StarCraft or Star Fox 64 on the Nintendo 64, and there is an iconic line delivered, even now, still so iconic, delivered by Peppy, the rabbit starship pilot, friend of the main character Fox McCloud. And Peppy has some sage advice for Fox McCloud when he gets into a tough situation where a lot of spaceships are shooting at him, as to how to, juke out of the way to avoid taking damage to his ship. And Crofton is
You could not have drawn this out further.
Crofton is going to deliver this iconic line in gaming history. Crofton, when you're ready, let the show begin.
Do a barrel roll. Do a barrel roll. Do a barrel roll.
I think Peppy's got a lower voice. I think you did the Toad voice. I think
Toad.
Is it? Yeah, I think the Toad guy has high voice, and Peppy's like, do a
shit.
barrel roll. Do a barrel roll.
Does he?
Yeah.
You could be right. I always think of Toad. Help! Fox! I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Fuck off, Toad. Slippy.
Slippy, that's his name. Oh, god damn it. Such a dirty ass name.
Maybe you're thinking about Falco, though. Falco was the cool dude.
Well, I don't think Peppy had a low voice. He just didn't have the high pitched voice. He had kind of the middle sort of. It's hard to know because the voices they picked don't go with the character. Like if animal species were racist and they had like characteristics, they got them all wrong. You
need to have more dreadlocks.
Like Disney characters, when they do animals, they're always like, there's a Jamaican bird and there's like a French fish, and like they.
Hey man, do a barrel roll, man.
Like the VO in that is just sort of weird. Like I would think the Peppy would have a fast-paced, high-pitched voice, and Toad would be like, ribbit, but they're like, I'm a toad. I'm like, that's not what toads sound like. Toads are French. They're like, hello,
Japanese toads sound like that.
I am Slippy the Toad, and oh wait, I'm doing Jamaican now.
That's so racist. Okay.
Is it? Oh, okay. All right, live stream. Some people stopped in to check out the show. Thanks. McJuggio10, I'm sure you're a spam account with your donated $1 with the message, keep up the great work, bro. Take care. We don't have a donate button, so I don't know where you donated. I'm sure that's a lie. You lied.
But if you didn't, thanks.
But, if you did, somehow, somewhere, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you donated to Good, Bad, or Bullshit. We do have a Patreon for that. But you're the only person to chat to us today, which is fine. But, yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you're watching the VOD, it's great. I'm going to cut us off there because I need to go and eat.